What a game, what a result. South Africa probably in the middle of what is arguably their best run in T20s. Men's side bhi wahan pe finals pahunchte hue. Women's side, of course, now doing this. An encore of what we saw last year, in fact. And again, a result that I haven't really had a lot of time to process. We've got everyone today, Jeet, Soumi and Neha. लगता है Soumi भी मतलब process करने के चक्कर में हाँ नहीं है अभी भी है. But what a bloody result, and couldn't be thankful. I remember how much Jeet and I tried to bully Neha into saying कि Australia नहीं पहुंचेगा इस बार, देखो नहीं जीतेगा. But of course we also knew कि जो भी बोलते Australia is Australia. Folks, what did you make of that result? Jeet, let's start with you. Like, did you see this happening?
No, not such one-sided result. Jeetna, that's a difficult thing to say because you always, mentioned that knockouts mein kuch bhi ho sakta hai. But for this game to be so one-sided that went against Australia is something that I don't think most of us would have anticipated coming before the game started. So it was quite a bit of a surprise that way. But even in the toss, I mean, it was weird because there were a lot of discussions from the Aussie commentators saying that it's a surprising call by Laura Wilbart, choose to bowl first and let Australians do what they prefer to do. But it all panned out really well for South Africa to make it to yet another final in 2 seasons. So fantastic on them to get the job done again.
Yeah, on the toss bit itself, I remember परसों मतलब confused था, लेकिन end में तो सही बोला जो बोला in terms of South Africa's path of least resistance. I also genuinely felt, irrespective of what the conditions will be on offer, South Africa's best, shot at making the final is to bowl first, simply because they would much rather rely on their batters in the second innings when the pressure will be at its peak. There's no point trying to back the likes of whoever it is in their bowling attack. वो pressure situations में Australia हार जाती होंगे, and thankfully wasn't to be the case. But yeah, we will be talking about it. Of course, a lot of comments as well in terms of how the game panned out. Neha, thoughts on what we saw today?
Yeah, I think today was just another remarkable display of cricket from South Africa, right? I think I think everyone had not given them any chances ki matlab aaj jeetenge, but they've just proven all of us wrong, and in what stellar fashion, right? I think South Africa has also never won against Australia in a T20 World Cup, so a way to register a first this way as well. I think they'll be very proud with the kind of performance they've put in. I think Anneke Bosch, again, someone who does come under the scanner a lot for the kind of performance she puts in. I think today's knock really, sets her apart. And, the way she kind of laid the base for that run chase, I think it was just remarkable in that sense. And Australia, for the first time, I think, in like so many of their, matches, looked extremely clueless in like so many points in the match. They got a lot of things wrong. And you could see the disappointment visible. Their body language at the end was just like, we are done. Ye nahi ho raha hai. But I think it's great signs for women's cricket, that we have someone challenge the hegemony of Australia, right? And South Africa doing it in this fashion, again going to the finals. Yeah, I think, Akshay, your dream of seeing a new winner this time around is definitely going to happen, yeah?
Yeah, fingers crossed we get to see that. But show me thoughts on the game, because it wasn't just the batting. Even in the first innings, they were really thorough in their performance. It never seemed like, Australia were, really ahead of the 8 ball there.
Exactly, and what unbelievable effort, what unbelievable dominance they have, and the kind of grip they have had throughout the match. I think that was really incredible to watch. And man, what hunger! I mean, it was just showing in their body language with everything they were throwing themselves into it. Be it those catch attempts which were like really like off the way, but they were just throwing themselves into everything. Just showed how much hungry they were. And even before getting into the game, Laura had of course said that Australia is unbeatable, but वो तो हर कोई बोलता है. But she just proved it. She just walked the talk. I mean, incredible. The Australian juggernaut has been finally stopped. What better a day that this could have been?
Yeah, I mean, that's how the mighty, of course, fall. Like, it's been over 5,000 days, if I'm not wrong. I hope I'm getting my numbers right there, since Australia last lost the T20 World Cup semi-final, which was, of course, the inaugural edition of the World Cup. Since then, they made it to the final each of the next 8 times or 7 times. So, yeah, it'll be nice to see a non-Australian final finally. But again, for the uninitiated, let's have the match summary out. कहाँ पे है भाई graphic? There we go. South Africa won the toss, opted to bowl first, And Australia's batters, to be honest, never really got going. Grace Harris, of course, opening once again because of Alyssa Healy's injury. Got out in the first over. In the second over itself, she got out trying to cut the ball. 3 or 4 is what she made. And then, of course, in came Georgia Warrior, who was later dismissed by Maizan Karp. Yet another outswinger and a fairly Maizan Karp-esque way of getting out, the way she gets batters out. Then Talia Migra and Beth Mooney stitched together a partnership, a fairly scratchy one at that, but it at least helped them ensure कि boss यहाँ से कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं होगा. We've ensured a place of parity. But again, Talia Migra got out trying to accelerate. In came Elise Petty, and then there was of course a bit of action. Phoebe Litchfield as well, which ensured that in the last 3 overs they scored about 33 runs, which helped Australia reach the score of 134 at the end of their 20 overs. Ayabonga Kaka and Marizan Karp being the pick of the bowlers. Ayabonga Kaka in particular was fantastic. That last over, I know, went for about 10 runs, but the way she kept executing those Yorkers was really great to see. We've already seen what she's capable of with the new ball. And of course, South Africa then in the chase. Baap re, aisa kabhi nahi laga. At no point in time did it seemed like, South Africa are, struggling here as a coach. Right off the bat, it was Tasman Brits who began, and then Laura Wolfart continued from there. And then once Anneke Bosch walked in, oh my goodness, 74 not out of 48. A knock very few people saw coming. We will, of course, talk about it in due course. Annabelle Sutherland being the only one amongst the wickets for the Aussies. Unfortunately, not enough. With South Africa chasing down the target with over 20 balls to spare again. Like Jeet said, it isn't just the defeat, it's a manner of the defeat, the way, they took care of Australia. Jeet, second innings se start karte hain. It's still fresh in our heads. Australia's bowling, what did you make of it? It at some point in time also seemed a bit chaotic. Talia Migra was running out of options and she just kept giving, anyone she could sort of give a ball to.
Yeah, I think it started with Megan Shoot not being able to find that prodigious movement that he generally finds on new ball. It was not as much an offer this night. So I think that is something that straight away went against them. And then Ashley Gardner came in, Tasman Brits took her down. Then Sophie Molyneux came in, and then you'd probably expect her to bowl a tight over at that point in time. But she went for 10 runs. So South Africa had already set the tone in the first 6 overs itself. And then they just capitalized upon that. And what that led to is something that we don't see often, which was a bit of pressure. Aussies feeling the pressure, especially on the field, with some of the misfields, and they were not complete. I wouldn't say they were 10 on 10, which is something that happens, quite a few times in most of the games for Australia, because they are the ones who can take the pressure, others can't. So this time around, I think they were scratchy, and once they were up against it, we could see that pressure getting to them, and they were kind of clueless. A situation that we have seen being fairly common with some of the other captains post Meg Lanning, where whenever the batter starts to attack them regularly, they don't have those second plan or the third plan to go to and quickly change things up in order to gain back control. So I don't think any of the bowlers kind of provided that kind of control. Annabelle Sutherland was pretty good. She, I think, took a couple of wickets. Sophie Molyneux in her second and third over was quite good, going for just 8 runs of those last 2 overs. But I think the match was long gone. It was long gone because, of course, Laura Wolfart was fantastic. Brits hit a couple of boundaries, and then Anneke Bosch took the game completely away from them. So there was no coming back from there on. So I think Australia didn't have those, I wouldn't say plan B, but I don't think they had plan C or plan D. It's just that they had a couple of plans. They thought that, they'll get the job done with that kind of plans, and it didn't really work out well for them.
Yeah, the plan's definitely not working out for Australia, but what did work out was South Africa's plans, the way they kept attacking. Neha, they were just relentless, the batting. Like, we saw Tasman Brits. We've spoken about Tasman Brits, Anneke Bosch. In fact, we've spoken about how they could potentially be, okay, at the risk of sounding very rude, the potential weaklings, because it's always been Marizan Karp and Laura Wolfart who've been scoring at a brisk rate, not the others. But here to see, the supposed weaklings, the supposed slow starters to actually come good by hitting those boundaries, it went a long way in ensuring that victory for them.
Absolutely, and even just breaking down South Africa's run chase as well, the way Laura Wolfart and Tasman Brits started, right? They were going run a ball, taking it easy. They were not taking unnecessary risks. And I think that was characteristic of, how they usually start. But it was later when they actually started, accelerating and everything. Tasman Brits got out early, before the power play. So thoda laga ki, oh no, is there a possibility of, wickets falling? But that's when Laura Wolfart, kind of took the baton and, kept the run rate going. And at any given point, South Africa wasn't entirely challenged. The required run rate was very much within their control. And Laura, I think we discussed in our previous review shows as well that, she needs that one knock to, just get back into the groove and absolutely take the match away from the opposition. And today was one of those innings, although Anneke Bosch's knock is going to be more spoken about. I think Laura Wolford really helped set that sort of a base. And then the moment Anneke Bosch came in, again, she was taking her time to settle in and was playing a lot of sweep shots quite successfully, unlike some other players who have had their fair share of struggles in this tournament. So that was very refreshing to see. And the moment you have another batter at the other end, doing the bulk of run scoring, that really makes life simple. And South Africa would be very happy, chasing down that total and absolutely, leaving the Australians devastated. Because how many times do we not see Australia in a finals, right? That just goes to show that today was not one of their days. And Anneke Bosch, the way she constructed her knock, I think it was just brilliant. Yeah.
I mean, Anneke Bosch के बारे में बात तो करेंगे. Even with Laura Wolfart, like the fact that she also started off strongly helped Anneke Bosch take a bit of time. But to be honest, she never really took any time. Starting से मारना शुरू कर दिया था. Beat the slot sweeps, beat the sweeps, beat even the river sweeps. But the one shot that we cannot stop raving about is that Laura Wolfart pickup shot. यार जो उसने मारा long on के ऊपर से. Bhai Saab, like even Darcy Brown was impressed. She was a bowler taking the hit, but she was mighty impressed with that shot. But show me again, all in all, thoughts on the game itself. Ki kya laga wahan pe? Like happy with South Africa? Do you think Australia probably left a bit too many in the field?
I think, the way I look at the game, I think it was the middle overs for both while Australia was batting and when Australia was bowling. And I think that's the main point of time when the game was taken away, because we know how good Australia is in in that part of the game, both with the bat and with the ball. And South Africa actually, when Australia was batting, they had completely restricted them during the middle overs. Similarly with the ball, they completely just took away the game during that point of time with those back-to-back fours, sixes. In fact, there's a point of time, like I think from the third over to the eighth over or ninth over, there was either like in all the overs there was at least one or two deliveries that had gone out to the ropes. So and just in comparison to Australia's innings, where we had seen the boundaries had completely dried up. So I think those parts of the game actually constructed it, and of course then the flourish that happened in the end took it all away. But yeah, incredible control during the middle overs with the bat and the ball. I think that's where the major power of South Africa did lie. But also, there are few things, very very finer things that usually happen, and I mean we always kind of appreciate it at least in our conversations. Right in the beginning, the first onslaught, it started with a misfield. So Tasman Brits had hit and there was a misfield and it had gone for four. And it was of Megan Shoot. I mean, a bowler who had picked up the maximum number of wickets in this tournament and was so looked upon, with so much of respect. If you get your momentum going against such a bowler as Jeet mentioned, I think that's where they got that entire confidence going up, and it showed right in the next over. The first or the second, third ball, first, second or third ball, the Tasman Brits hit that beautiful six. So yeah, I mean the smaller things going their way, and of course it kind of completely denerved Australia. We've seen them getting completely flustered on the field. That DRS appeal just made no sense. But yeah, I mean it was a sign of them getting very desperate. So yeah, over and above, absolutely fantastic to see such a team who's yet to win a World Cup come there and beat the champions.
I mean, it's not often that you see the Australian side being nervous. Let's just take a few comments before we talk a bit more about the game. Nivya going on to say, Talia Migran and Alyssa Healy aren't captaincy material. They need another landing. यार अब बोल ऐसे रोज ऐसे landing मतलब खेत में उगते हैं कि हाँ मिल जाएंगे landing और क्या. That's imagine like India after MS Dhoni retired, if we just started saying we need another MS Dhoni like captain. नहीं मिलता ना इतनी आसानी से. That's why they are as or rather they are as good as they are, yeah, of course. But about McLanning itself, what did you make of it, Jeet? Do you think McLanning's absence potentially played a very big role, or do you think Alyssa Healy's absence itself played a role there?
Yeah, I think, look, during the preview as well, we talked about one thing, that it's not that Australia is weak generally. They are still strong. They were strong before, they are strong even now. But it's that invincibility factor that has dropped significantly. And the gap between, say, Australia and the next set of best teams has reduced. And that's the reason why we were saying that, come at a knockout stage, there could be a situation where Australia might lose out because that invincibility is gone. It's no longer there. And I would personally say that Meg Lanning was one of the key reasons why they had that. She was dominant and she was very very good when it came to the tactics, or even as a batter, walking in at number three, she used to take the game head on and she used to kill the games right then and there, being so aggressive right from the get go and putting the bowlers under pressure and capping off the chase. She was really dominant at that number three spot. And even as a leader, she was, I think, fantastic. Tactically, she was good. She was very good at the field settings. She always knew which bowler needs to be introduced at what point in time. So she was fantastic. Once she was gone, it was always going to be a massive challenge for whoever got the next responsibility to lead the Australian side. And I think Alyssa Healy herself had acknowledged that as well. Healy herself is not that bad a captain, but I still feel that tactically she is still not up there. We have seen that in the other franchise competitions as well. Whether we talk about the Sydney Sixers in the WBBL or the UP Warriors in the WPL, we have seen where she kind of lags behind a bit. So I think that is something that was on show. But having said that, this loss came under Talia Megra. So again, in this game, it was completely different. It was an entire different scenario because I think when Alyssa Healy got injured, I think one of the discussions was who comes into the side, and we said that it's going to be Grace Harris realistically who might open. But that is where I was of the opinion that maybe Elise Perry might be a better option to open. Georgia Wareham is somebody I expected at number three, and then the other batters. Now what has happened is it is Grace Harris who has opted as the opener. She had Beth Mooney as her company. In comes Georgia Wareham at three. And at number four, suddenly it is Talia Megra who walks in. So Talia Megra was probably not even getting to bat. Suddenly, comes up the order when she has taken over the mantle at number four, which means they've got three batters in the top four with pretty much no experience of game time in this particular tournament. Grace Harris has got just that one ball duck. Georgia Wareham has been completely out of color. And Talia Megra hasn't even got to bat. But come at these last two games, suddenly all these three batters are in the top four or top five. It doesn't really go well, right? You need to understand these kind of things. Elise Perry suddenly gets shafted down the order. Ash Gardner is down the order. Phoebe Litchfield is down the order. Why do you need to do that? I know I'm saying this because they've lost both the games. It hasn't really worked out the way they would have liked it to work out. So these are the kind of things that they need to identify. They have been world champions for a reason, but now that invincibility thing that I'm talking about, well, here is one of the examples that was on show in these last two games.
And in all fairness, agar मेरे को tactically अगर बताना, it's not, I mean, nitpicking at best, but I still would rate Talia Megra a bit over. I would rate her higher than Alyssa Healy. Last year, WBBL, maybe I saw a couple of games. And even in the game against India, she did have her plans in place. Of course, plans to soch ke aate, but the way they were executing it and the way she was also using her bowlers did look good. But aaj to matlab, yeah, I mean, it is a rare off day for Australia, so you can't really put the blame on the skipper there. But in terms of the lack of or the absence of Meg Lanning, Neha, do you think that played a role here? How much do you think did Alyssa Healy's absence itself play a role? Because not only as a skipper, the fact that she'd been coming up with these brisk starts every time consistently went a long way in ensuring Australia were able to come up with those above par totals. Was it really to be the case once Grace Harris came in?
Yeah, definitely. I think Alyssa Healy's absence was felt right at the top of the order. Matlab, we haven't seen her, in her full glory this World Cup, but whatever little knocks we've seen, I think, there was some promise. And even in a semi-final versus South Africa, she would have delivered, as a captain right at the top of the order, can make the most of, those loose balls. But again, you're looking at an attack like South Africa, you have Marizan Kaap and Ayabonga Khaka right in the power play. So that would have, come with its own fair share of challenges. So Australia definitely missed Alyssa Healy as much as they admit that, we can still manage with, Grace Harris coming in there and all of that. But even just looking at the Meg Lanning part, I mean, once a player is retired, it's always easy to look back and be like, hey, if this player was there, things would have been different. But I think the next task for Australia will be to groom a new captain. I mean, Alyssa Healy felt like a very stopgap sort of an arrangement, but they have to look long term. And with T-Mac there, probably she could be the next fit, or they basically have to look for options. And also, this is kind of giving me reminder of Australia in 2017 when they lost that ODI World Cup, in the semi-final to India. And we saw what happened after that. They came back to win literally every single ICC event ever. So is this going to be that sort of a turning point for Australia? Is also something, I'm very interested to see. And I mean, as a cricket fan, yes, you would love to see Australia dominate the stage again. But will this World Cup turn out to be something like that? Open up the doors for, a new captain search and, a resurgence for them again are other narratives that I'm interested in.
बता next तो अपने घर पे है भाई ODI World Cup next year. So they decide to come up with their research in a couple of years from now. But again, sure, Alyssa Healy, McLannan, all of these were issues. But show me not just Australia, South Africa's bowling on the first innings. Like we said, it wasn't just about South Africa's batting. The way they bowled as well, it really looked like they were pumped. They were all in to put up a solid fight. What the most expensive bowler had an economy of 7.75. Just going on to show kitne अच्छे से पूरे group ने ball डाली है, because it's always been the case of Ibonga Khaka, Marizan Kaap and Malaba doing well, but the fourth and the fifth bowling option usually going for runs. At least that's how other teams targeted South Africa. But today, everyone really put up a solid performance in unison.
Exactly. And, when we are talking about the middle overs, I think Chloe Tran came into bowl during that point of time, and she didn't pick a wicket, if I recall correctly. But in spite of that, the way she bowled and controlled the runs, I think that made a lot of difference at that point of time. Also, talking of Malaba, of course, she has been very successful, 10 wickets to her name in this tournament. But see, first of all, that entire partnership of T-Mac and Beth Mooney was frustrating and boring to hell. But at the same time, when T-Mac had actually started picking up a little bit, that 50-run partnership was over. It was important for South Africa to strike the blow at that point of time, and Malaba just came in and did exactly that. So yeah, I mean the overall bowling unit, of course, they had Marizan Kaap right up at the top. She had a matchup with T-Mac, so there was a certain amount of equation going in there. But yeah, over and above the entire lineup, the way they have bowled and restricted Australia, and they have literally made Australia get their the worst of the numbers, the lowest score at the 10th over mark. So many dot balls. During the 15th over mark, I think the comps were saying there were 40 plus dot balls at that phase. So I think it just speaks for itself how good they were to control Australia, who has such a good batting lineup and the depth. And as a result of which, they do have a lot of ability to flourish, even if they have a little bit of upset up there in the top. But in spite of that, they could actually restrict them. That just shows the quality, or the intensity of bowling that they have done.
Like bowling to theek hai, Jeet. How much of a role do you think Beth Mooney getting out at the wrong time played? Because it's not even like she got out. Like she was run out. Fantastic effort from Marizan Kaap. We know of Beth Mooney's pattern. वो time लेते 20-30 कभी आज जैसे 40 ball लेती है, and then she tees off. Bang! Just when that inflection point was supposed to happen is when she got out at the worst possible time for the Aussies. Do you think that'll come under the scanner now?
I don't think so, because I think she was already very exhausted, and the kind of knock that Mooney was playing, it always felt as if it's a matter of time before she gets out. And in a way, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Yeah, it was such a sluggish knock that she had. 44, I think, is what she managed. But they came up 42 deliveries, and that's why I was thinking, that in the second half, I thought that the pitch has gotten better for the batters. But then you realize that you've spent 16 or 17 hours of watching Beth Mooney bat. So how do you even gauge how good or bad her pitch is? Because the way she bats, she would make an easier pitch look difficult, because she's that bad to your eye in terms of her shot making. So it was a completely shocking knock in a way, because it was not only a high dot ball percentage that she was having, but the fact that she just ended up hitting 2 4s. That's crazy. 44 or 42 with 2 4s as an opener. That doesn't get the job done. I know you're an anchor, and I know that she accelerates at the back end, but it's too slow for the kind of conditions they had on offer. And even in those 42 balls, she gave quite a few chances. I mean, she got away with it because the ball never went to the fielder; it fell somewhere near. But so I don't think it was that big a thing. It's just that she was anyway exhausted, and it was a very scratchy knock right from the get go. So I was not a huge fan of the way she was going about it, and something that we have seen time and again, where she gets the job done eventually, but it's in these kind of crunch games where it could easily go against you. And that's the end of the stick that Australia got tonight, unfortunately. It was the wrong time for them to face that, but it happened, and I hope they kind of realize from this that it's not really the right way to go about it. And it's like I mentioned, it's also about the partner she had at the other end. Nobody having had the experience or having had the game time coming into these set of games, right? There is no point. So it was an unnecessary shuffling that took place when there were other batters or other options who were in form, having done decently before in this tournament as well. For them to be shafted down the order never made sense. Yeah, Grace Harris ko dal diya as Alyssa Healy's replacement when Healy was doing a phenomenal job. Yeah, easily it could have been Perry opening alongside Mooney, and then other experienced batters come in. Because even if you look at Wareham, the way she went about it, she's there at number 3 for a reason. She's there to be a pinch hitter. But if you watch her knock, there is only one ball where she looked to attack, and that was the free hit, where she got the inside half of the bat and it went for a 4 against Marzan Cap. Otherwise, she was defending the ball and struggling to get going as well. So when you're out there as a pinch hitter and defending the ball or not trying to be aggressive, what's the point of being termed as a pinch hitter at number 3? So I think unnecessary shuffling has cost Australia dearly.
Yeah, we do understand that. And in terms of the surface as well, of course, what would be a better gauge, I guess, is the way at least Perry and Phoebe Litchfield also played in the latter half of the first innings. So, I wouldn't say it was a very batter-friendly surface, but sure, it wasn't a 134 for 5 kind of surface. That's something we can say confidently. But before we, of course, move on to the game, a lot of people have been talking about Jess Jonassen and her not being there. Neha, kya lagta hai? I know, I mean, this will be a bit in hindsight, but there was a lot of chatter around Sophie Molyneux making the cut ahead of Jess Jonassen, not just the World Cup, even in a couple of tours as well earlier on. But all in all, kya lagta hai? Do you think Jess Jonassen could have potentially made a difference here in the 11 itself?
Yeah, I mean, now तो कुछ भी बोल सकते हैं ना कि this player missed out, that one missed out. But again, this is Jess Jonassen, player of so much repute and stature we are talking about. Probably Australia did miss a trick or two, not including her. She has had some great returns in franchise cricket. I mean, it was a little confusing as to why she was not selected. But again, it's a team like Australia. They just have so many options to choose from, players who are actually performing really well. And Sophie Molyneux too, right? Coming back from injury, it really didn't look like, she was away from the game, has been performing really well. So it was definitely a tough choice for Australia to make. And I mean, unfortunately, Jess Jonassen had to miss out. But then now, going ahead, if Australia does want to revamp a couple of things, she would definitely be in the scheme of things and, kind of bolster their attack. But I think this is, again, just a one-off sort of a situation for Australia where they had a bad day. And it doesn't mean, they have to change their entire T20, template, so to say. But Jess Jonassen was definitely missed, and I hope she gets a look in, going ahead as well. I remember in one of her interviews, she spoke about how she didn't feel bad that she was not selected, but then she's proud of, the kind of effort she has been putting in. So she's definitely in the scheme of things for Australia. At least there's like a lot of transparency and communication, right, from the selectors to her. So that line of passage is still there. So I'm very confident that, she will make a strong comeback, and I hope she's in the scheme of things for Australia going ahead.
चलो देखते हैं वहां पे क्या होता है because yeah, I don't know 11 में कहाँ पे जगह बनती है उनकी in a full strength side, that is like, because it does invariably what Jeet clearly has different thoughts. Do you think both Sophie and Jess Jonassen can be squeezed into the 11?
So I think many people were saying that Australia are looking towards the future. कौन सा future है? Jess Jonassen herself is 31 years old. She's not 41. It's just that probably in the last 12 to 15 months her performances have been very, very bad, if I have to put it very blatantly, in any pretty much competition that she has played, or she has had those spells where she's conceded a lot of runs. But by Molyneux ne bhi kiya hai wo in different competitions that people don't necessarily follow. But here the point is that if Australia are open to having two wrist spinners in the side in Georgia Wareham and Alana King, he could have always gone out with two left-arm orthodox spinners as well. Just imagine in a game like this, instead of picking Darcy Brown, having Jess Jonassen, how big a difference it could have made, right? It would have made all the more sense, right? Having Jess Jonassen ahead of Darcy Brown. Itne pace option anywhere. Darcy Brown, is kind of struggling for form, struggling for that rhythm control. They could have easily gone ahead with the experience of Jess Johnson. So if they are open to having two wrist spinners on their side, I don't see how they cannot have two left arm orthodox spinners rather than opting for those two wrist spinners. And they can easily do that and fit both of them in if the conditions are conducive to spin, or it's a game like this where your only other bowling option is probably Darcy Brown, who's not really in form. Alana King ko tum khilane wale ho nahi, main janta hu. So I think there is always that room to fit both of them in, because Molineux has done a terrific job with the ball. There is no doubting her quality with the ball, and I think she is a must-have in this particular format of the game as far as the bowling scheme things are concerned. Not the batting, of course, but I think there is always a room, because at the end of the day, that experience also matters, kahin na kahin. And I think Jess Johnson definitely still adds a lot of value at the age of 31. She has a long career ahead of her. She's got a lot more to offer. So hopefully Australia are open to having those kind of multiple options in the spin department of the same variety.
Yeah, I mean 30-31 साल में ही अगर people move on करना शुरू कर दे तो फिर आधी टीम ऐसे ही भाग जाएगी. So it'll be very difficult. One last bit of formality before we talk about tomorrow's game as well, of course. Top performer Anneke Bosch. Show me that performance came out of nowhere. 74 not out of 48 balls. मतलब किसी ने expect नहीं किया था यार.
Yeah, again, like the way she started off the innings and the way she attacked, the shots that she played were absolutely beauty to watch. And we have talked about her a fair bit, but this particular knock coming in such a crucial time, I think it means a lot. It just showed up in the way everybody was reacting around her, but also very very enticing to see how calm again Laura Woolworth was, and how they both of them kind of paced the innings, and how they actually ensured, I mean, hitting those regular fours and sixes, and how they ensured that they always have the run rate in control, which of course meant that at the end Aussies cannot put back the pressure, like they do have. I mean, they have done a similar kind of a thing with India, right? But yeah, in this particular case, the batters seemed absolutely fluent, and of course, Bosch was at the helm of it.
Jeet, matlab, again, the knock itself was fantastic, no doubt, but it almost seemed like यार कोई दूसरी batter आ गई. Like I personally haven't seen this version in the recent past.
Yeah, and she had acknowledged this at the end of the previous game where, she kind of wanted to bat at number three, but she knew that, she has not been able to put in the performances that she would have liked. And that's what we have been talking about right from game one, haven't we? That she's batting way too slowly. There is no intent, nothing that's coming. We have seen the ability. She has a technical ability. That is something that we have discussed before, but it's not translating into the numbers that matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, सब लोग स्कोर कार्ड देखते हैं और उससे अलग ही स्टोरी पता चलता है. So over here, it's true. I mean, even the last game that they played against Bangladesh, she was off to a very slow start. I think she was batting on 3 of 6 or something. From there on, she ended with 25 of 25. I know फिर भी run a ball ही था. It was not a massive hike in the strike rate, but we could see those log sweep coming out against the Bangladesh spinners. And the way she was hitting them was very, very clinical. Tonight, she has done the same thing. From the get-go, she was attempting those log sweeps in front of square, and she was managing to hit the gaps. Whether, they were turning out to be 2 runs or 4 runs, but she was doing that. And she was onto it non-stop, relentless attack. Relentless. Because at the end of the day, you know that you cannot give even a small window of opportunity to Australia. You give that small window of opportunity to them, they will get in and they will completely break the game open from there on. So that's where I think Anneke Bosch and Laura Woolworth both played a very, very crucial role in constantly attacking them and not providing that window of opportunity to Australia at all. And that's where again we can compare Beth Mooney and Anneke Bosch. TK, I don't know conditions, chodo. Keep them aside. We are talking about intent here. Beth Mooney's 2 fours versus Anneke Bosch's 8 fours and 6. Beth Mooney's dot ball percentage of 31 versus Anneke Bosch's dot ball percentage of 21. Now, when somebody's dot ball percentage is high, you'd probably expect that batter to be a high boundary striker. He or she should have a high boundary percentage. But Beth Mooney had a boundary percentage of 18. Of course, 2 fours. So just 18. And of course, Anneke Bosch was 51%. So everywhere it was so lopsided. And that is how clinical Anneke Bosch was. And it was fantastic to see her, boss the game, if I may put it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, Neha, what were your thoughts? Because मेरे लिए भी एक तो starting में in the second ball of her innings, she pulled the ball with utter design, एकदम अच्छे से crunch किया, boundary नहीं गई ball, it was just a single. But in my eyes, like, this is the first time I've seen her attack so early in her innings. नहीं तो उसके पहले 4 5 6 बॉल तो ऐसे ही मतलब या तो डिफेंड कर लेती है या फिर कुछ और होता है. This was the first time I saw a clear sign of intent. And that was very heartening. But the way she executed later on, yeah, like 74 not out of 48 is almost Herman-esque. मतलब against this Australian side in a knockout game. और क्या चाहिए?
Yeah, it was almost like, she's saving up this good performance against a great side like Australia. I think through our, shows in this World Cup, our constant complaint was, her not having that sort of intent. Matlab, she tends to pile on the dot balls, and the moment Laura Mulford gets out and Tasman puts in her at the crease, it just gets really, really difficult to, watch both of them back because they just take awfully long to, settle in and do that. But I think today's knock really just, proved all of us wrong. The manner in which she was just going after the Aussie bowlers. Matlab, she's not seeing, our opposition is Australia. She's not getting overawed by the occasion, right? Which was, I think, quite remarkable to see because most of the times in women's cricket, you see Australia, everyone's like, oh, Australia, they're such a dominant side and all of that. But then I think her knock really, set the base for that run chase and at no point, she looked like she was under pressure or feeling really threatened by the Aussie bowlers. I hope she can, carry on this vein of form because South Africa is now in the finals. They would need, all of their players to step up once again. And yeah, Anneke Bosch has again served a reminder of why she's still relevant and very important in that South African batting lineup. And hope she, grows from strength to strength.
Yeah, at the very least, let's hope she's able to replicate that performance in the final on the 20th of October. That game's happening on Sunday, of course. उससे पहले लेकिन दूसरा सेमीफाइनल होगा, which is happening tomorrow, the 18th of October. Friday है boss, तो मतलब weekend है तो आराम से हर कोई देख सकता है. But it is going to be a solid game. It's West Indies taking on New Zealand. So I for one, like have always said, I'm a sucker for underdogs. मेरे को तो बस एक नया winner चाहिए. West Indies unfortunately have won before, so that's pretty much the only reason why I'll be supporting the White Ferns. But Jeet, West Indies versus New Zealand, Sharjah में हो रहा है match. क्या लग रहा है boss? मतलब क्या हो सकता है यहाँ पे?
It's going to be a tight battle because when it comes to Sharjah, we've been talking about how it has, favored the spinners a lot more with the sluggish and the slowish tracks that we've got over there. Now it's two teams who have got a really good blend of spinners and they've got good variety as well. So I think it's going to be about the team that has got more batters who are good against, playing spin. And that is where I think it's going to be tested because they are bowling with itna kuch doubt nahi hai. West Indies have got Haley Matthews, Karishma Ramharak, there is Kiana Joseph, Afi Fletcher. They have that additional options as well, Ashwini Munisar and Zeda James. And New Zealand over here has got the informally Kerr. They've got Fran Jonas, they've got Eden Carson. So the spin attacks stack up really well for both of them. It's just that kitne batters and do team who can play spin well. And that's where I look at West Indies and can only see Haley Matthews. When I look at New Zealand, they've got Millie Kerr who can bat well against spin. There is Sophie Devine as well, but they can get out very easily as well. So it's going to be a test of the two teams and the batters in the two teams, the top 5, top 6, and their ability to play spin. So it's going to be a tough one to call as to who starts as the favorites because yaar, pata nahi hai, bahut tight hai, honestly, and that's the kind of semi-final you'd want, right? You don't want it to be, a game where you know that a certain team starts as the obvious favorites and have got a past record as well. But this one's going to be a close one and quite an exciting one to look forward to.
Yeah, and I also had just one more name to the Kiwi side of things. Georgia Plummer in the last couple of games. I know. But in the last couple of games, at least against Sri Lanka and Pakistan, both of these games have happened in Sharjah. So that also goes in their favor recently. And usne acha kiya. The way she was attacking spinners in particular, she was very confident. So technically नहीं तो mentally at least mindset wise she knew कि boss मेरे को ये करना. She was very confident in her stepping down the track or be her sweeps. She was confident in executing them. बाकी वो execute कर पाती हैं कि नहीं वो हमें मतलब कल पता चल ही जाएगा. But show me New Zealand's batting, West Indies' batting, both haven't exactly been their strengths. It's both of their bowling attacks, like Jeet mentioned. And this game is happening in Sharjah. Like, what are your expectations from the game itself? What do you think, or how do you think, rather, will this game pan out?
See, I'm all in for West Indies, honestly, and the reason being that the West Indies have actually got a little bit of resurrection in this particular tournament. Of course, we have spoken about this many times, that how they have come back into it. And when we look into New Zealand's journey, of course, they also have come into this into the knockout phase as an underdog. But at the same time, they're the last couple of games that they have won and have got into the knockout phase is probably to like you're playing against a slightly easier opposition, and hence I feel that the kind of momentum West Indies has have at this moment will be a little bit better to tackle New Zealand, who probably is not the best team going in there. So yeah, I mean, all in all, I'm cheering for West Indies. Now coming to the specifics of it, I mean, I think the way Jeet kind of explained the details and the strengths of the two sides with respect to the conditions, I can top anything over that. But yeah, over and above, looking forward to some good hitting, even in Sharjah, which has been not so much there throughout the tournament.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, Neha, because once again, bowling ka to pata, lekin batting ka, how do you look at this? Kiana Joseph Shaw had a fantastic game against England. Do you think she will be able to do a repeat that against New Zealand as well?
I mean, she has proven to be this, magic element in West Indies batting lineup. I mean, we didn't expect her to really fire that way, but I think she was remarkable in that last game. I think she's in the form, so probably we can expect some fireworks, from her heading into this match as well. And even the kind of journey, right, that both the teams have had. I think no one really expected them to, make it to the semi-finals. So now they're here. This is such an important stage. They would obviously want their batters to get going, because whichever team is batting first has to actually post a good total, so that thoda run chase may they can actually kind of put pressure on the team that's chasing, right? But yeah, I think to answer your question, yes, I think Kiana Joseph, we can hopefully get to see another knock from her. I mean, she's such a lively character, off the field as well. And yeah, when she gets going, I think she's pretty much unstoppable. Although a lot of people, question her, like her technique and the way she kind of plays her shots. So this is definitely an interesting match and a lot to look forward to.
या मैं तो बहुत obnoxious साउंड करूंगा. टेक्निक की बात तब कर सकते हैं जब टेक्निक हो. यहाँ पे टेक्निक नहीं, यहाँ पे पैर हटाना और मारना. But even then, I'm all for entertainment. I love the character that Kiana Joseph is, her dance moves and all of that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. Sorry, Jani also echoing my thoughts there. I'm cheering for New Zealand tomorrow because it'll be great to have a new winner. Completely agree with you there. And I'd like to see either Cup or Divine or Bates end their careers on a high. The long-time West Indies players have already won once. Cup इतनी जल्दी last World Cup मतलब एक और तो खेलेगी ना मेरे हिसाब से. I know has she announced? She's not announcing yet. So I'm expecting her to play the 26 World Cup. But even then, I'm all for seeing Cup also win the World Cup. Either New Zealand or South Africa. That's the way I'm looking at it. India नहीं तो new winner मांगता है अपने को बस और कुछ नहीं. Now, coming back, Jeet, New Zealand, you in particular have been vocally in support of being off New Zealand using Lee Kasparik, especially in Sharjah. They finally brought her in that Sri Lanka game. She was effective there as well, got a 2 for. Dubai game में expectedly conditions नहीं थे उनके favor में, तो she was dropped. You see her making a comeback tomorrow in place of Fran Jonas potentially or anyone else?
Yeah, I think तभी मैंने बोला था that I can probably understand their line of thinking. Whether I agree or not is a different thing, but that's what I kind of foresee. I think what game was it? Yeah, the previous game at Dubai, where I didn't expect them to retain. Yeah, the Pakistan game, right, at Dubai. So I didn't really expect them to have again Lee Kasparik for that or stick with her and opt for Fran Jonas instead, being a different variety altogether. But of course, coming back to Sharjah, I again kind of understand how they might potentially be looking at this, and that's why I don't think that Kasparik will be added for this game. They'll continue to back Fran Jonas over her. Again, that new ball value, left arm spinner, quick arm balls against Haley Matthews, even Kiana Joseph for that matter. So I kind of understand how they might be thinking. I could, of course, be wrong. But that's the only reason why I don't really see Lee Kasparik getting added for this particular game. They'll probably stick with the same 11 that they had in the previous one. So it's going to be Fran Jones continuing with the other, pace attack and the spin attack that they've got. So I know I did see the images coming out from their practice session, everything. वहाँ Kasparek भी थी, but Fran Jonas भी थी. So अभी वहाँ तो सब लोग bowling करते हैं, so you cannot read too much into it. But given how their thought process might be, and my understanding of their thought process is, I don't expect Kasparek to get a game this time around. It's going to be Fran Jonas who will continue.
Yeah, and that's a fair call, to be honest, because Fran Jonas, for what it's worth, could also potentially be instrumental in dismissing Kiana Joseph, and that value on the balls usko nikala hai, because the way she took the game away from England is not something they would want to see happen to them. So it will be interesting ki kaise dekhte hain, how do they look at the 11 over there. But Neha, what about West Indies now? Last game was in Dubai against England. They've played just the one game in Sharjah. So clearly, they would potentially want to make a few changes. But do you see any changes happening? Chidi Nation finally, bahar matchup.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that is possible. I think they do come in with that disadvantage of not being too familiar with the conditions. But I'm just interested to see what is the kind of change they would bring in. Would Mandy Mungrew again, kind of come back? She just recently made her debut too, right? Matlab, I did see some glimpses of promise, so I'm interested to see if she kind of makes her comeback. But again, just looking at West Indies too, right? I mean, we did talk about Kiana Joseph, but even Hayley Matthews, right? She's such an important cog in that batting lineup as well. I think they would depend heavily on her to kind of get a start, and she chips in with the ball as well. So in that sense, I think she's also going to be very integral to kind of challenge New Zealand, and I think the toss will obviously play a role in that sense. But yeah, I think that could possibly be the one change that they would kind of enforce. Yeah.
Also, any updates on Stephanie Taylor there? I know she missed the last game due to injury. Any chances of her potentially coming back? So that could, sort of be something. Jeet, any thoughts?
No, I don't think there are any updates as far as her injury concerns are concerned. Yeah, but I think they've got lack of options, right? That is why they keep going to the experience of Chidi Nation, even though that experience is having strike rate of 88. They keep going to her because and dropping catches as well. But fielding wise, she's still decent, yeah. But batting, it has never convinced me in this format of the game. But sadly, they've got lack of options. But I'm completely open. Try out Nerissa Crafton if you want to. I'm okay with that as well. I don't mind her. I don't mind Mandy Mungrew, but Chidi Nation. But no, I understand, yaar. Experience wo log ko add karna hai, fir they are ignoring the numbers, and that's probably one way of looking at it when you've got limited options when Stefani is not available. So probably fair play.
चलो fair play सही, देखते हैं क्या होता है. But of course, time for us to also now try and predict कि कल कौन जीतेगा. आज का तो हो गया was Australia, South Africa. Not a lot of people gave South Africa a chance, but they've definitely made the most of whatever was in their hands. Soumi, let's start with you. West Indies, New Zealand, Sharjah.
Yeah, I will go with your theory of reverse jinxing because वो पहले मैंने इंडिया बोला था नहीं हुआ, आज भी कल भी मैंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया बोला था नहीं हुआ, तो अब तो फिर then I'll go with I'll not go with West Indies, of course.
Oh, so I'll try to neutralize yours then, but ठीक है. So Soumi is going with New Zealand for now. Neha, क्या लगता है? How do you see this game panning out, and who do you see will come out on top tomorrow?
Honestly, this is a tough one, and you've really put me on the spot here, Akshay. But then, in all fairness, I think both teams are, heading in with some great momentum, having registered wins. Again, reflecting on the point of how no one thought that they would actually end up making it to the semi-finals. So it's special in that sense. I think New Zealand still has the edge, because they have a much better record against West Indies, when you look at their head-to-head as well. And all in all, I think the unit is gelling well together. I know West Indies, matlab abhi thoda, momentum mein ride kar raha hai after the kind of performances they've put in, but I'd still, pip New Zealand above, and I think, they would really be very spirited to give that perfect farewell to, Susie Bates and Sophie Devine, who have been stalwarts, right, for their campaign. And in all the pressers, every single time, Sophie Devine goes, they're like, talk about your possible last World Cup and, your equation with Susie Bates and all of that. So, everyone's, just setting it up so much in that sense. So, yeah, I definitely give New Zealand, the edge here.
चलो देखते हैं वहां पे क्या होता है. जीत, who are you backing?
I'm just thinking कि सही वे, I mean, of looking at it ना, एक बार जितवा दो उनको ताकि फिर रिटायर हो जाए. But
He's just playing 16 chess. जीत लो ताकि ये हट जाए. So fair shout.
But the two teams, the last time the two teams clashed was way back in 2022, and I think New Zealand won 4 of those 5 games, but all of them were like very close. So the point here being, it was a long time back, and now things are very, very different. But look, I talked about West Indies and the momentum thing. It's something that's for real. Heading into knockouts as well, they are somebody who rely a lot more on momentum than other teams. If they are on a roll, it's tough to stop them. And that's what I see a challenge for New Zealand. I think it's again going to take, one or two players from the West Indies to, put their hand up. But that might as well turn out to be enough to edge out New Zealand, in my opinion. I think they're going to ride upon that momentum of the West Indies. So I won't be surprised if they, just about edge New Zealand to make it to the finals.
So expecting more of a mercurial performance from one of them, like Leandra Dottin apne aap se, yeah. It'll have to be more of a match-winning performance than a team effort for West Indies at least. But I for one genuinely think New Zealand have a good chance there because their spin attack I would say is much better than West Indies. I wouldn't say much better, slightly better actually, not much, because Afi Fletcher, Hayley Matthews, Karishma Ramarak, all of them have been doing well for West Indies as well. But with New Zealand, the likes of Eden Carson, Neely Kerr, and then if Lee Kasparik plays her as well, and given that they have the option of like a Sophie Devine, Brooke Halliday if you want to, like Sharjah के लिए वो जो मतलब mid-90s वाले pacers की जरूरत है वो है इनके पास. And also I think Kiwis batters are slightly more accustomed to these conditions, and not just because of the fact that they've played more games here. In general, they have more experience, और ये सब time पे मुझे लगता है वही काम में आता है. You don't need to score 150, 160 here, 120, 130. Just hold your nerve, back yourselves, and I feel the Kiwis will be able to do that. But where I agree with Jeet is West Indies is only one Hayley Matthews performance or one Deandra Dottin performance away from winning the game. So you don't know. Like on their day, which can very possibly be tomorrow, they can easily win the game. So it'll be interesting to see kya hota hai wahan pe. That game, of course, is coming live from Sharjah at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time tomorrow. Anyways, that's that from today's preview/review. We spoke about today's game. South Africa, a historic win for them, their first ever win against Australia in T20 World Cup. So it was fantastic to see that. Let's hope tomorrow we get to see New Zealand make the second ever World Cup final. The women's team is the only team from New Zealand to have ever won a World Cup in the first place. ODI World Cup 2000 mein jeeta tha. Let's hope now the women's side also becomes the first ever Kiwi side to win the T20 World Cup come the 20th of October. That looks to be fantastic to watch. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, and also subscribe to us if you haven't already. We will be back tomorrow, 11 p.m. sharp, discussing the game and its results. I'm not ending this with anything. Until then, goodbye. See you.